when you have the bravery to imagine and the will to get things done. That's Africanacity. That's ABSA. Corporate and Investment Banking.
That's right, you're watching Africa Trade and Business. I'm Bronwyn Seaborn. In this episode, we take a look at Africa's path to industrialization and how that can be accelerated with Hannro Steenekamp from Frost Sullivan Africa. We also unpack why Ghana's position as the world's second largest cocoa producer is under threat. But first, let's take a look at the news-making headlines across the continent. Kenya will reduce its spending plan for the financial year starting this July by 12%. This is part of efforts to attain a balanced budget in the next 3 years. The nation has in the past decade been running wide fiscal deficits to fund a range of ambitious infrastructure projects, but the stance nearly backfired when markets started to question the government's ability to repay the debts. Apart from cutting spending and reducing the budget deficit, the state has also been introducing new taxes. Nigeria will only grant new mining licenses to companies that present a plan on how minerals will be processed locally. That's according to new guidelines that are currently being developed. To support the move, the West African nation plans to offer investors incentives such as tax waivers for importing mining equipment and the full repatriation of profits. This comes as Nigeria looks to extract more value from its solid mineral deposits. Government has not stipulated when the guidelines will be finalized or come into effect. Uganda will commission its first tin refining plant next month. That's as the country looks to expand capacity and add value domestically to its minerals. Woodcross Resources, a Uganda-based mining and mineral trading company, owns the plant, which has an annual capacity of more than 1,000 tons. Ivory Coast has officially opened a 37.5 megawatt solar power plant. Government says this is the first step in its plan to integrate more renewable energy into the power sector. By 2030, the country wants 45% of its energy mix to consist of renewable energy. The nation also wants to become a major power supplier in West Africa. It currently produces most of its power from oil and gas and already exports electricity to Ghana, Burkina Faso, Benin, Togo and Mali. And Ghana's upcoming cocoa harvest has come under pressure due to a virus, illegal mining and climate change. And this is threatening Ghana's position as the number 2 producer in the world. Here's more detail in this packaged report.
Janet Jamfi's farm was once covered with nearly 6,000 cocoa trees. Today, less than a dozen remain, replaced by cyanide-tainted pools of waste water. Across Ghana, cocoa plantations are seeding ground to illegal gold miners, known locally as galamsey. That's one factor that's contributing to catastrophic harvests this year, driving up the price of chocolate worldwide. But for Jamfi, who has 4 children to support, there is a more immediate, painful impact.
We were all surviving on this as livelihood. It's not as if there's another livelihood anywhere that I can rely on. No, I've no source of income anywhere.
Ghana's Cocoa Marketing Board, COCOBOD, has said it has no up-to-date data on the scale of destruction wrought by galamsey. But its communications director, Fifi Boafo, said the impact from the number of farms being destroyed was enormous.
It's a combination of factors. But certainly, if you have all these farms being lost, productivity affected as a result of illegal mining, then its impact on the industry is one we are really struggling to deal with.
Ghana and neighbouring Ivory Coast are the undisputed powerhouses of cocoa, accounting for over 60% of global supply. So when their harvests suffer, prices rise. Easter shoppers in the US are finding chocolate on store shelves is over 10% more expensive than a year ago, according to data from research firm Nielsen IQ. Chocolate makers tend to hedge cocoa purchases months in advance. That means, analysts say, the true impact will only really hit consumers later this year. Farmers, experts and industry insiders also blame the impact of climate change and sector mismanagement. And there's what many consider an existential threat: swollen shoot. It's a virus that at first reduces yields before ultimately killing trees. If infected, plantations have to be ripped out and the soil treated before cocoa can be replanted.
It will transfer the disease to
CocoaBod estimates about 1.5 million acres of plantations are now infected with swollen shoot. That compares with around 3.4 million acres of land under cocoa cultivation, a figure CocoaBod said includes infected trees that are still producing cocoa. Experts say poor harvests in Ghana and Ivory Coast could spell the beginning of the end for West Africa's cocoa supremacy. Ecuador is forecast to overtake Ghana as the world's #2 producer by 2027. Brazil and Peru could also step up. Meanwhile, it's communities like Jamfi's that suffer. She says she had resisted the illegal miners' threatening demands to sell them her plantation. Then one day she arrived to find her land cordoned off, she said, armed guards blocking her path and bulldozers tearing out her trees. Like others, she's been caught in Ghana's perfect storm of disease and destruction, and had few options but to watch her livelihood be snatched away.
Well, Africa is poised for an artificial intelligence revolution as AI adoption in the region is expected to grow by 18% by 2030. But AI's application is immense, and so to hone in on the benefits and challenges of the technology, we're going to take a look at it through the perspective of special economic zones. Known as SEZs, these zones are touted as a way to ramp up foreign direct investment, increase trade and create jobs, because there are designated areas where companies enjoy tax benefits and other legal privileges. So how can AI support the purpose of SEZs in Africa, and what are some of the challenges? Joining me to discuss this is Hannro Steenekamp, consulting analyst at Frost Sullivan Africa. Hannro, thanks for joining us. So SEZs have had mixed results, where some have not taken off and others have really thrived. You believe that AI can be the tipping point here, because if things such as machine learning and blockchain are core to SEZ development, then SEZs could be more successful. So walk us through that thinking.
Yes, absolutely. If we look at how SEZs, or at least the SEZs that have been successful in our region, in Africa as well as in South Africa, the SEZs that have had the most success with getting funding as well as, creating those jobs and increasing trades as are their goal, these have been the ones that have been very focused on specific industries. Now, an example of this could be your Trane Automotive SEZ in Trane or Pretoria, which, Ford, I think they've committed over $1 billion to car manufacturing in there, as well as in Morocco. There's been a successful zone, I think it's called the Tanja Med Zone, which has over 100,000 people have been employed in this zone, and that one has been focused on the whole automotive value chain. So through that, you can kind of tell that the successful ones are the ones that focus on one industry. Now, what I am recommending is that we get an SEZ that focuses on these technologies, because as you mentioned earlier, AI is growing by 18%, and that is per year for the next few years, and has been on a very rapid curve upward recently. So if we can get all these technologies and have a zone within Africa or within South Africa where we can focus on machine learning, on blockchain, on industrial automation, on all these technologies, that would be very beneficial for us as a country. Create jobs, increase trade, all of that.
It does sound really great, Hannro, but it's only possible if there's buy-in. Do you see governments realizing this potential and so taking that step to come up with maybe proactive policies that incentivize AI adoption in SEZs?
Yeah, you make a good point. That is definitely we need funding, and whether government will give that funding or not for something like that, I'm not exactly sure. But if the right policies are in place, that international players, because a lot of these big, fourth industrial revolution technology companies, they are looking for investments. They've made so much money in the last couple of years. They're looking for places to invest their money. So if government can put the right policies in place that promote the use of these technologies and, not restrict it or sort of downplay it, then we can definitely get that investment and funding into our region. So I definitely think, I think it's possible. We just need the right policies.
If those policies don't come through, though, are the benefits enough for companies to do it themselves, unprompted?
Well, I think if you get a zone, if a zone gets designated for that, I think even if there's no buy-in or policies, it would be beneficial for any company in that industry to place themselves there. I mean, think of the sort of, if you get everyone in one zone, think of all the working together, what is the word that I'm looking for?
Collaboration, perhaps.
That's the word. Yeah, the collaboration, all the technologies, everyone working together, and that would also attract more people. I mean, if we can attract anyone interested or anyone that has a specialization in this sort of technology, if we can get all of them into one area, think of all the collaboration and potential that could lead to.
Hannro, often when we talk about artificial intelligence, when we talk about this kind of technology, the first thing that always springs to anyone's mind is the fact that machines can replace people and therefore the impact on jobs. How do we deal with this kind of criticism if we're looking to head into a situation where AI is so integral to an SEZ, bearing in mind that SEZs, one of the cornerstones is actually to create jobs?
Yeah, no, but I don't believe that it will be taking jobs as much as it will be assisting in daily jobs. I mean, let's take 20 years ago, Google wasn't as big of a thing. Google came in, people thought that it would be taking jobs, but essentially I'd say more than half the people that work these days in any career use Google as a tool. And I think in this sort of same way, AI, if you look at the large language models that are at the moment, your ChatGPTs, they're being used as a tool. Blockchain, on the other hand, I don't believe this will be taking jobs, as well as with machine learning. I mean, let's say in a factory, you will maybe not need as many people that do the manual labor, but these sorts of people can work in technical roles where they could be, in the programming of these machines. They could work in, the oversight of these machines. I don't think it will be taking jobs as much as it will be assisting with existing jobs or creating new ones.
And what you raised there, Hannro, is so crucial, right? Is that it needs to come hand in hand with an upskilling of the workforce, because to do this without that, it will nevertheless be one of the SEZs that just fall apart, right?
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. It's interesting. I spoke this the other day to a friend of mine who's a teacher in primary school, grade 1s to 3s, and she was saying how much sort of computer work they are doing these days. So it's something that we're already starting to implement, but the more and more we can get sort of computer and programming and these sorts of skills through the schooling system and education, the better it would be for that sort of opportunities.
Yes, I have a 4-year-old who's already started coding. So yes, it is really becoming a part of the schooling curriculum, and we hopefully have a workforce that is skilled enough to meet the needs of digitalization as we move towards that. And Hannro, these conversations are really important, and these ideas are really important, and the skilling of the workforce is also really important. But I think what it comes down to is, are we practically ready for this? So if we were to have an AI-driven SEZ tomorrow, is that possible?
Yes. No, I think it is. I think it is. I think we are ready. I think that the sort of disruption that people are scared of is not necessarily something that'll completely change everything as we see it. I think it'll just be assisting in getting us closer to our objectives and our goals and our outputs in a quicker way. I think we are ready. I think the only way that we will be able to take advantage of this opportunity is if we take that risk and we take that leap. So I definitely think that We have nothing to lose.
We have nothing to lose, except for if we don't take the opportunity now, do we risk being left behind?
Yes. No, I agree with you. You pointed that out really well. If we do not commit to this, if we don't put investment into artificial intelligence, into getting our people educated on that whole industry, then we do risk missing out. And I mean, Africa, or at least South Africa, have been our whole point of being at the forefront of technologies and these sort of development is what has led to us, being one of the more successful countries in Africa. So it's absolutely true what you said.
Well, on that note, let's leave it there. Hannro, thanks so much for your time today. That was Hannro Steenekamp, consulting analyst at Frost Sullivan Africa. And that's where we leave things for this week's episode of Africa Trade and Business. From me, Bronwyn Seaborn, and the rest of the team, it's goodbye for now.
When you have the bravery to imagine and the will to get things done, that's Africanacity. That's ABSA. Corporate and Investment Banking.